Okay, and I need to enable the screen share.
And let's start by gathering our body, speech, and mind, aligning them in present awareness. And to do it, we can just remember to relax, release, and bring the mind home. To relax, assume your meditation posture. Just breathe naturally. Scan your body and notice tension and release it. And also release any emotional, mental baggage from the day, anything that might be a distraction from our study tonight. Drop all the speed from tearing into a holiday weekend. And just bring your mind home to this time and place together in an attitude that is spacious and non-grasping. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Thank you very much. So does anybody have any questions or comments about anything that we've been talking about? I will say that I've gotten a little bit of feedback from a number of people, and I'm going to change up the format just a little bit. And tonight I'm going to read and give explanation as we go along. So I'm going to give everybody a kind of a night off so they won't have to read. They can just kind of meditate, listen, and follow along with the text that they have. Anybody have any comments or questions? Okay. Well, then I'm going to take just a minute. I got to get my screen share online here. So just give me a second. But if anybody thinks of anything, just speak right up. I sent the frame, the mandala frame for the Wrathful Deity. So I hope you all received that in an email, and that you maybe printed some copies of that for your notes. Will be very good for you if you've been able to do that. Okay. So tonight what we're going to do is we're going to stay with the Wrathful Deities, and we're going to, they're short parts, so we're not going to have to do a whole lot with each one. So we're going to be able to cover a number of them tonight, I think. But if anybody has questions, don't hesitate to ask the questions so that we know that everybody's understanding what's going on. So let me see. I'm going to do a screen share now, I hope. There we go. Okay. And then, okay, so I'm going to stop the share. I just want to get to my starting point. Okay. So let's see. Okay. So if we go to page 14 with the purification recitation, page 14, the natural liberation of habitual tendencies, the purification for that. So this is the Vajrasattva 100 syllable mantra recitation. So we recite the first part 3 times, the first mantra 3 times. I'll recite it in English first, and then 3 times in the Sanskrit, and then the body of the text, and then we recite the 100 syllable mantra 3 times. So everybody, please join me with this, and you can keep your microphones off so we don't get the feedback, but it's important to be able to do the recitation. So now we begin. It is the unified intention of the body, speech, and mind of the 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities of the great Buddha field that displays the wisdom that cuts through all ignorance to manifest their wisdom for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. Om Ahong Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah. Om Rulu Rulu Hong Jio Hong. Om Ahong Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah. Om Rulu Rulu Hong Jio Hong. Om Ahong Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jana Datu Ah. Om Rulu Rulu Hong Jio Hong. From the field of reality's expanse, uncreated and pure, within a celestial palace, which is a seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty, intrinsic awareness, radiant and empty, arises in the form of Vajrasattva. Seated upon a bejeweled throne, adorned with lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness of absolute wisdom and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom appearances and emptiness. And the head is adorned with a garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the 5 enlightened families of those gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of the Buddha body of perfect resource, exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease, with the right leg extended and the left drawn in. Radiating at the heart is the seed syllable hum, surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sutsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruhum. Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajra Mame Munsa Bajri Bhava Mahasamaya Satwaha. Okay. So now we go to part 2 of the text. We go to page 123. We'll review day number 8, and then we'll continue on. So that's page 123. So what we've tried to do up to this point is to give everyone a chance to be reading the text to build confidence that you can do this, and that it may seem like a lot, but I hope that, by everyone taking a turn, you see that it's not so difficult, and there's great benefit to it. It needs to be done out loud. It's very important to do it out loud, at least one time when you're reading it, but then you can go back and read it quietly to yourself and so on. The reason why we're doing it out loud is that we are using our lungs, we're using our body. We are to be able to recite each of these ideas and concepts and prayers and so on. So we're using the physical body. We're using the intellectual mind by thinking about what the recitation contains, what the content is. So we're using our body, we're using our mind, or rather our intellect, and that opens up our heart center, our heart mind. And so that's what we're trying to do. So by doing the physical, the open recitation, we're using our body and we're using our intellect to open up our heart mind. The goal is to be able to feel the radiation, to feel the light, to feel the power in our heart center. And then when we recite these prayers, that the power of these prayers is coming out from our heart center, not just from our words, but from our heart center. And then when we do the mantra, the 6-syllable mantra, the liberation mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, it's circling around the seed syllable Shri, that the power of that is going out through our voice, but it's also, and more importantly, going out through the power of our heart mind. And those lights are radiating to all beings in all directions and all the bardos, and showing them light to be able to liberate themselves from whatever emotions they may have, whatever confusions they have, so that they may achieve enlightenment, or at the very least have a good, noble rebirth in their next life. So, so by doing this, it's all part of the process of being able to engage our body, speech, and mind with this practice, as well as all the other practices that we do in Vajrayana Buddhism. So I'm on page 123 right now. So I'm going to read this, and then when we've already talked about day 8, which was the Buddha Haruka, but I don't believe that we did the Vajra Haruka or the Ratna Haruka. So I'm going to do each one of those one by one, and then give an explanation of each one. So I'm on page 123. Part 2, an elucidation of the appearance of the wrathful deities in the intermediate state of reality. Herein is contained an elucidation of the arising of the intermediate state of the wrathful deities. The 8th day, the natural liberation, the natural transformation of fundamental ignorance into pure awareness. The natural transformation of mental constructs associated with the sensory spectrum of phenomena. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. Although the intermediate state of the peaceful deities did previously arise within you, you did not recognize it. So now you have wandered through the succession of pathways to here. Now on the 8th day, the assembly of wrathful blood-drinking deities will arise. Recognize them and do not be distracted. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, he who is called great glorious Buddha Haruka will now arise vividly, manifesting before you from within your own brain. His body, blazing in a mass of light, is dark brown in color, having 3 heads, 6 arms, and 4 legs, which are firmly set apart. His right face is white, the left face red, and the central face dark brown. His 9 eyes are fixed in a fearsome, wrathful gaze. His eyebrows are quivering like lightning. His fangs are bared and gleaming, and he is laughing loudly, uttering the sounds of ah la la, ha ha, and suhu, like whistles in loud, piercing cries. I'm going to screen share. This is the Buddha Mahatara Haruka and his consort Krodhesvari. The golden auburn hair of his head blazes and rears upwards. Sun and moon discs, black serpents, and dry skulls adorn each of his heads, and black snakes and fresh skulls form a garland around his body. In his 6 hands, he holds on the right, in the first hand, a wheel, in the middle one, an axe, and in the last hand, a sword. And to the left, his first hand, he holds a bell, in the middle one, a plowshare, and in the last, a skull. The female consort, Buddha Krodhesvari, is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. Amidst loud pounding palatal sounds of and chom, and an echoing roar like the reverberation of thunder, the fire of the pristine cognition blazes from the fiery, indestructible pores of their bodies, and thus they stand together with one leg extended and the other drawn in on a throne supported by Garudas. Do not be afraid, do not be terrified, and do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own intrinsic awareness. These are your meditational deities, so do not be terrified. This, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Varanchana and his consort, so do not be afraid. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So on page 125, you see on the left side of the page is as an illustration of Buddha Mahatara Haruka, and on the right side is Varanchana. So Varanchana is the peaceful deity, and his emanation, powerful, compassionate emanation, is Haruka, Buddha Haruka. So this is there to be able to help us to overcome those emotions and those terrible things that cannot be done peacefully. They need to be done with great power, with great fierceness. So therefore it transforms into the Buddha Haruka. One correction, the picture of Buddha Haruka is on page 123. So on the right side is Buddha Haruka, but then Varanchana is on page 125 on the right side. So it says here on page 125, it says at the bottom, it says go to page 141. So if we were only reading for this one day, then we would go to page 141. But if we're going to continue reading, then we will read page 141 later after we're finished these visualizations of these particular deities. So now we go to the next page, 126, the 9th day. This is the natural transformation of aversion into mirror-like pristine cognition, the natural transformation of mental constructs associated with sound. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. He who is called the transcendent Lord Vajra Haruka of the Vajra family. of the Vajra family of blood-drinking deities will arise from the eastern direction of your brain and appear before you. His body is dark blue in color, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs, firmly set apart. His right face is white, the left red, and the central face is blue. In his 6 hands, he holds on the right, in the first hand, a Vajra, in the middle one, a skull cup, and in the last hand, an axe. And to the left, in his first hand, he holds a bell, in the middle one, a skull cup, and in the last, a plowshare. The female consort, Vajra Krodhasvari, is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. Do not be afraid. Do not be terrified. Do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities, so do not be terrified. This in reality is the transcendent Lord, Vajrasattva Ascobia and his consort, so do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So now we go back to page 126 and we give an explanation. So Vajra Heruka is the natural transformation of aversion into mirror-like pristine cognition. So it says, the natural transformation, that's what I just read, into mirror-like pristine cognition. And the consort is the natural transformation of mental constructs associated with sound. O child of Buddha nature, Riki Bu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. He was called the transcendent Lord Vajra Heruka of the Vajra family. The blood-drinking deity will arise from the eastern direction of your brain and appear before you. So if you're using the mandala frame, this would be in the lower quadrant, would be the white section, would be where this Vajra family, where this Vajra Heruka is, along with Vajrasattva Ascobia in the peaceful deities. So we've always got to remember that these visualizations, these illustrations of these deities are symbols. They are not literal. We need to understand what they represent. So these illustrations help us to do that, both in all the different aspects of what they are holding, all the different implements that they are holding, all the different adornments that they have, their stance, their body position, and so on, are all symbolic of their power, of what it is that they are doing in compassion. What they are showing is fierce compassion in order to be able to subdue the emotions and the negativities, the non-virtue that we are experiencing here in this Bardo of reality. So as we in this Bardo of living, as we are developing our understanding, we use these illustrations to help us to remember that just one glance at any one of these deities immediately conveys to us the power of their compassion to overcome whatever negativity that they are focused upon. So here it describes his body is dark blue in color with 3 faces, his 6 arms and 4 legs firmly set apart. His right face is white, his left red, and central face is blue. His 6 hands holds on the right hand, his first hand, a Vajra. A Vajra is the symbol of wisdom. And the middle one, a skull cup. And in the last hand, an axe. So the skull cup is there to be able to show us that we are impermanent, that our bodies are impermanent. And through the skull cup, it is a symbol that we have passed from this everyday life into a life that is beyond recognition. So the skull cup indicates the impermanence of this life. the axe is a instrument to be able to chop away at strong negativities, at strong non-virtue, strong difficulties, strong emotions, and so on. That they can be split apart through this spiritual axe that the Buddha is holding. On his left hand, he holds a bell, and in the middle one, a skull cup, and in the last, a plowshare. So the middle, so the bell represents wisdom. So the compassion that this Buddha is showing is a actualization of the wisdom that's being symbolized by this bell. The middle one is the skull cup. So again, it's showing that this is a transcendent being who is transcending the impermanence of our human body, of our human life. And then the last is a plowshare. A plowshare is a shovel, which is showing that these seeds of karma can be planted in this virtual garden of the Bardo, to be able to plant these seeds of awareness, of awakening, of being able to understand the impermanence of who we are, and the non-conceptuality of what being able to transcend this impermanence takes us to, the non-conceptuality, the unborn nature of our true nature. So the female consort, Vajrasattva, is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. So the symbolism here is that she is in an embrace of bliss with him, and to show that we are non-dual, we have non-dual nature, and that the masculine and the feminine are just figments of our imaginations that we are consumed with in our ordinary life. But as we transcend that we see that this leads us to spiritual bliss and spiritual happiness, spiritual emptiness, understanding of emptiness, the emptiness that all of this that we see in this phenomenal world, in this phenomenal existence, are merely appearances. They're merely figments of our imagination that we have allowed to control us, that we aspire for these things over and over, we desire for these things over and over, we have jealousy for these things over and over, we attach to these things, we have aversion to these things, we have jealousy for these things, and we have the ignorance, the delusion that that these things either do not exist, or that they mean terrible things rather than powerful compassion. So she represents that wisdom that brings all this to bear. He is the actualization of that wisdom. So her left hand offering the skull cup filled with blood to his mouth is showing again the symbolism of the impermanence of this life, of the appearances, that we might regard that as being repulsive, to be fed a skull cup full of blood, but we look at that as just a symbol of this phenomenal nature, and that literally we're not going to have to drink blood in that way. It's not meant to be that way, but it is meant to be able to show us how to transcend, how to go beyond those things that we think are so important, that are permanent to ourselves, like our lives, our bodies, and this world, and so on. So then it goes on to say, do not be afraid, do not be terrified, and do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities, so do not be afraid. So here it's saying that these are just aspects of your own nature, of your own true nature, these forms that are appearances of great fierceness and compassion, to be able to overcome that which has been controlling us. And that is what we should be considering to be repulsive and repugnant, are these things that are happening to us, these emotions that we have in our non-virtues. So we recognize these deities. So it says to recognize this as the Buddha body of your own awareness, that you become aware of all these potentials, all these negativities, and all this compassion, all this wisdom, all this dynamism of coming together in this play that we are preparing ourselves for in our daily meditations. These are your meditational deities, so do not be afraid. This in reality is the transcendent Lord Vajrasattva Ascobia and his consort. So do not fear them, be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So it says recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So if we are able to recall this, if we can remember this, if we have this within ourselves, and this Heruka deity and this consort are there to help us to remember. So when we are in the Bardo, or the being that we are reciting this for in the Bardo, that we are invoking this vision so that they may see this vision and they may be remembering their practice that they practice while alive. And then they right away then spontaneously become Vajrasattva Ascobia and become liberated. They realize that they are Buddha. They realize the light, and they are able to transcend whatever confusion they are going through. So of course, again, the key element to this is that we're doing this in our meditation while we are living, doing our meditation when we go into the Bardo of meditation. So that we can, if we do recite this for others, we're doing this out of the compassion that we have experienced this ourselves, and in these terms, being able to relate it in these terms. We've experienced this all before. We've died many times. We've been born many times, but we may not have had the benefit of the Bardo Thodol. We may not have had the understanding of what it is to become a Buddha, what it is to become a Bodhisattva, and so on. So this is what we are trying to instill within ourselves. If anybody has any questions, please just speak right up.
I have a question, Lance.
Okay.
What do you make of this being the first pair of deities? They had, if you will, many to choose from. What's special about this one?
Well, this isn't the first, because Buddha Heruka here's Mahatar. So Mahatar Heruka, if you look at this, if you can see the screen, right now, here are the 58 assembled wrathful deities of the Buddha body of perfect resource. So so in the center, this is Buddha Mahatar Heruka, and I misspoke before. So thank you for pointing this out. This is the wrathful emanation. This is the fierce emanation of Samantabhadra. So this is the natural transformation of ignorance into pure awareness. So this would be the very first. Then the next would be Buddha Heruka. This is the natural transformation of delusion and the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. So this would be, this is the transformation of Varanchana. So that's what I should have said before. And I wasn't following this, so I made a mistake. So this is the natural transformation of delusion into the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. So, and then the next one would be Vajrasattva, the natural transformation of aversion into mirror-like pristine cognition. So this is the Vajra family, and this is the one that we just did. So this one here would be in the very center of the wheel, in the very center of the mandala, where Amitabha Prayer is in the peaceful deity. Then this one would be in the outer center of the mandala, the transformation of delusion, ignorance, into the pristine cognition, the pure light of reality's expanse, being able to recognize this reality's expanse, the phenomenal nature, seeing the phenomenal nature. This first one is the ignorance, transformation of ignorance into pure awareness, of being able to recognize the dualistic nature of all this and seeing this dualistic nature is all the same. The second one would be the delusion of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, that we don't understand that this is a display of our true nature. Then the third one, the one that we just did in the East, would be the transformation of aversion into mirror-like wisdom. So this would be hatred. So hatred is very powerful. So first we had ignorance, now we've got aversion. So aversion, if we can understand that it is mirror-like and that it has no true nature of itself, it is only appearances. And aversion, hatred are only appearances, something that we create in our own mind or that we sustain in our own mind. So so that becomes very important. So this is explained first, because we go around the wheel starting in the center, then we go down to the east, then we go to the south, then we go to the west, and then we go to the north. So I hope that explained a little bit about this. The more that we go through this, the more that these wheels will begin to fit in together, and you'll be able to see how this fits in together. So then the next one, this leads us to Ratna Haruka, which on the 10th day, we experience Ratna Haruka. This is the natural transformation of pride into the pristine cognition of sameness. The pristine cognition is the pure light, is the clear light of sameness or equanimity. So I'm going to read now the text that it explains this. So the 10th day, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchokpe Madorje, listen without distraction. On the 10th day, he who is called Ratna Haruka of the Ratna family of blood-drinking deities will arise from the southern direction of your brain and appear before you. His body is dark yellow in color, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs firmly set apart. His right face is white, his left is red, and the central face is a burning dark yellow. In his 6 hands, he holds on the right, in the first hand, a jewel, in the middle one, a kadvanga, and in the last hand, a club. And to the left, in his first hand, he holds a bell, in the middle one, a skull cup, and the last, a trident. The female consort Ratna Krodhesvari is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. Do not be afraid, do not be terrified, and do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities, so do not be terrified. This, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava and his consort, so do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So the text sounds very much the same as the Ratna Haruka, or rather as the Vajra Haruka. And you'll see that these all sound the same. They all have similar body attributes, except that their colors are different. And they are holding, in some cases, different implements. In some cases, they're holding the same implements. So Ratna Haruka is the fierce expression of Ratna, who is the Buddha of equanimity, the Buddha of the earth, the Buddha of the jewel-like nature. Ratna means jewel. So this pridefulness that we might have, thinking that we have these jewels, that we own the earth, that we are possessive of the earth, that we are part of the earth, that we as human beings are superior to all other beings, and so on. So all this natural transformation of this pride into the pristine cognition of sameness is what Ratna Haruka is trying to help us to recognize, that not only are we part of the earth in a balanced way, but we're also part of the solar system. We're part of all the celestial bodies that we look at in the sky and so on, and all the minuscule things here on the earth and out into all these different far-flung places and so on. So we see this equanimity, we see this sense of balance that we are. In his hands, the implements that these deities hold are very, very good reminders of what their power is, of what they are doing. So here in the middle of this paragraph on 127, it says in his 6 hands, he holds on the right, the first hand, a jewel. So it's showing the jewel, the Ratna of his essence, the Ratna quality of the family, the jewel quality of the family, that it is a precious object. In the middle one, a Khadvanga. A Khadvanga is like a scepter. And what it represents are the 3 Buddha bodies, the body of the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. These are the truth body of the Buddha. It is the subtle enjoyment body of the Buddha, and it is the emanation body of the Buddha. So this is his transcendent nature, being able to show that this is what he represents, that we are, and we need to be able to recognize this ourselves. So the Khadvanga, and the last one is a club. A club is an implement that sometimes, there is stubbornness. Sometimes there is something that needs to be kind of woken up in a fierce way. So this club is there to maybe to shock whatever is holding us back, and to be able to allow us to liberate ourselves from whatever is holding us back. So if you remember back with the Vajrasattva, the one before, in the right hand, he was holding a Vajra, which was a symbol of his nature, the Vajra. He was Vajrasattva, and in the middle one was a skull cup to show his transcendent nature, and then the last one was a plowshare. Was an axe. Was an axe to be able to cut through stubbornness. Here there is a club. So the middle one and both of these now was to show transcendent nature, and then the last of the right implements was an instrument to be able to break loose from our attachments to our phenomenal nature. Then the next, so then on the left side, the left side, he holds a bell, which was the same as the Vajrasattva. In the middle one, a skull cup, which was the same as the Vajrasattva. And then the last, a trident. And the trident is showing the 3 worlds. And this is explained many different ways. One way is to say it as there is a world above, there is a world that we are in, and there is a world below. There are other ways of saying it, that there are the 3 dhatus, the Dharma dhatu, the the Arupa Dhatu and the Rupa Dhatu. The Rupa Dhatu is the desire realm and the form realm. This is what we see. The Rupa Dhatu. We see form, and we see desire. We experience desire. And the next one is the Arupa Dhatu, which is, it is desireless, but it is form. These deities are all part of that Arupa Dhatu, are all part of that. Then the Dharma Dhatu is the mind of the Buddha, and that is formless and is desireless. So these, so the trident is representative of those three worlds like that. The female consort, Ratna Haruka, is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. So it's the same illustration as we saw in Vajrasattva. And so the skull cup and the blood is symbolic of rising above our dualistic nature, rising above the our thinking that this is terrible and repugnant, that they are beyond that, that they see this as enjoyment of non-discriminating enjoyment of all things. So next page, it says, do not be afraid, do not be terrified, do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities, so do not be terrified. This in reality is the transcendent Lord Ratnasambhava and his consort. Do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So this is, this is what we are trying to develop, is that we are releasing our attachment to all these conceptual thoughts of what we consider to be our bodies and our permanence, that these things, that the sufferings that we are going through we should look at as our illnesses, as part of our human nature that is pulling us down. And what we need to do is to be able to transcend that. We need to be able to overcome that. So the way that we do that is by seeing these things as naturally who we are, and that we need to be able to transcend them. When we die, then all kinds of things begin to happen to our bodies, and we need to be prepared for that. If we are attached to our body, there may be a propensity for us to want to look back and see and see what's happening to our body, see what's happening to our families and so on. And we go through this period of being able to have great remorse for who we are, what we did, and so on. We need to be able to liberate ourselves from that, to let ourselves go from that. So these illustrations are training us to be able to do that, are giving us the compassion to be able to let go of that suffering. If we dwell on the suffering, if we dwell on these things, it just pulls us back and pulls us back into being born into the six realms of being a human being, which could be in the hell realm, or part of the hell realm could be the hungry ghost realm, could be the animal realm, the human realm, the Azura realm, the jealous God realm, and the God realms, back into what we have just come through and so on. So we need to be able to recognize what this is, what dynamics is happening here, that these are all just symbols of being able to overcome these things that are holding us back. Okay, so then we go to the next page. Excuse me 1 second here. So now we're on page 128 in the middle, the 11th day. The 11th day, the natural transformation of attachment into pristine cognition of discernment, the natural transformation of mental constructs associated with taste. So Padma Haruka. So this is the emanation of the peaceful deity Amitabha. So this is the red family. Ratna family was the yellow family. This is the red family, Padma family. And the Vajra family would have been the white family. So now the text says, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchuk Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. On the 11th day, he who is called the transcendent Lord, Padma Haruka, of the Padma family, of blood-drinking deities, will arise from the western direction of your brain, in union with his consort, and appear vividly before you. His body is dark red in color, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs firmly set apart. His right leg is white, the left blue, and the central face is dark red. In his 6 hands, he holds on the right, the first hand, a lotus, in the middle one, a kadvanga, and in the last hand, a mace. And to the left, his first hand, he holds a bell, in the middle one, a blood-filled skull, and the last, a small drum. The female consort Padma Kratesvari is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck, and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. Now going back now to the implements that he's holding. In his right hand, the first hand, he's holding a lotus flower, a Padma flower. It's called Padma in the Sanskrit language, is his family emblem. So Ratna family was the jewel, and the Vajra was the Vajra family, was the Dorje, was the sometimes explained as the power of wisdom. So that's in the first right hand is the lotus, and the middle one was a kadvanga. So the kadvanga, like with Ratnasambhava, holding the kadvanga that shows the 3 Buddha bodies, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and the Nirmanakaya. So the Kadvanga is being expressed there. So it's showing his transcendent nature. And then the last hand is a mace. So the mace is another strong implement, could be called a weapon, to use to subdue strong negativity, strong non-virtue, that which is holding us back, to be able to release that strong attachment that we have towards whatever that non-virtue is. And then on the left side, the first hand holds a bell, which represents the wisdom, and the middle one, a blood-filled skull. So this was to show the transcendent nature of our true nature. And the last is a small drum. So this drum is calling together all the enlightened ones. The drum is an instrument, as a musical instrument, that the sound of that brings all the dakinis and the dakas, all these enlightened ones, to come to this place that Padma Haruka is here in the Bardo for our benefit. All this is within ourselves. So we're recalling the dakinis and the dakas to come to arise within ourselves. And then the female consort Padmasambhava as far as embracing the body, right hand clasped around the neck, left hand offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. So the same as was in the other two Harukas that we saw already, the Krodhesvari, the female deities. So then it says, do not be afraid, do not be terrified, do not be awed. Contemplate them with joy. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities. So do not be terrified. This in reality is the transcendent Lord Amitabha and his consort. So do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So any one of these Harukas can awaken us, can remind us, can of our true nature, of our Buddha nature. These are Buddhas. These are very fierce Buddhas, and their wrathfulness is aimed towards that which is pulling us away from our loving kindness, from our compassion, from our joy, from our equanimity, pulling away from our bodhicitta, pulling away from our true nature, our Buddha nature. So the more that we engage with the study of these, the more we begin to recognize these beings as being beings of compassion, great fierce compassion and love and so on. So now we move on to the next, and that is page 130, which is the 12th day. So this is Karma Haruka, the natural transformation of envy into the pristine cognition of accomplishment. And his consort is Karma Krodhesvari, the natural transformation of physical objects of touch. So the text says, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchuk Pema Dorje, listen without distraction. When the 12th day comes, he who is called the transcendent Lord Karma Haruka of the Karma family of blood-drinking deities will arise from the northern direction of your brain, in union with his consort, and appear vividly before you. His body is dark green in color, with 3 faces, 6 arms, and 4 legs firmly set apart. His right face is white, the left blue, and the central face is an awesome dark green. In his 6 hands, he holds on the right, in the first hand, a sword, in the middle one, a kadvanga, and in the last hand, a mace. And to the left, in his first hand, he holds a bell, in the middle one, a skull, and the last, a plowshare. The female consort, Karma Krodhesvari, is embracing his body, her right hand clasped around his neck and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. Do not be afraid, do not be terrified, and do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. These are your own meditational deities, so do not be terrified. This, in reality, is the transcendent Lord Amagoga City and his consort. So do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So now back, so this is in the northern family. This is the green family. This is the family of karma. This is the karma family. And the symbol of the karma is a double a double dorje, double vajra is called a vajra, 2 interlocked vajras, like in the form of a cross. And this is the family of Amagoga City. So in his right, in his 6 hands, he holds on the right, the first, a sword, in the middle one, a kadvanga, and his last hand, a mace. So here, instead of the Vajra, he's holding a sword. This is a sword, a wisdom sword that cuts through ignorance, that cuts through jealousy, that cuts through that sense that we are incapable of doing new things, that we're incapable of doing anything that we wish to do, that we need to do, that we want to do. So those things that hold us back, karma is what holds us back. So this is cutting through the dualism of karma, cutting through all the confusions that we have, this wisdom. So the double Vajra, the Vishra Vajra, is emblematic of that also. So the sword here is very dramatic in being able to be able to show how it cuts through. Then in the middle one on the right is a Khadvanga. So we talked about that before as the three bodies of the Buddha. And the last is a mace. We talked about that as a weapon to be able to subdue those negativities, those things that are holding us back. And then on the left, the first hand holds a bell. We talked about that as wisdom. In the middle one, a skull. We talked about that as transcendence. And the last, the plowshare, of being able to renew, of being able to plant new seeds, of being able to grow from that, to be able to transform ourselves. And the female consort, Karmakrat Hasvari, embracing his body, the right hand clasped around his neck and her left offering a skull cup filled with blood to his mouth. So we talked about that as non-judgmental enjoyment. So do not be afraid, do not be terrified, do not be awed. Recognize this to be the Buddha body of your own awareness. So we're aware of all these things. We're becoming aware of all these aspects, things that in the peaceful deities, maybe we were, if we had recognized them, we would have been liberated in the peaceful deities, by the peaceful deities. But here, we didn't have that kind of clarity. We didn't have that kind of resolution in our lives. So here, these wrathful deities, these fierce deities, are here to be able to kind of shock us into remembering. They're more powerful. This awareness that we have within ourselves, but it's been blocked up. Remember, our awareness is naturally there, but that awareness gets blocked up by our emotions, gets blocked up by our ignorance, by our confusions. So we're trying to release those blockages. So these are your own meditational deities. Do not be terrified. This in reality is the transcendent Lord Amagog City and his consort. Do not fear them. Be devoted to them. Recognition and liberation will occur simultaneously. So once we recognize them, once we say, oh yes, this is Karma Haruka. I remember this. I remember, the sword. I remember, something about the attributes that he had. I remember the dark blue color or the dark green color. And that reminds me. And then I'm able to remember and say, oh, this is Amagog City. And this is the Buddha of the wisdom of the all-accomplishing wisdom. And I know what that is. I've experienced that before. I've meditated on that, and I can liberate from that. So it brings you right back into the heart. It brings you right back to Amagog City. So these 8 Harukas, these are called the Haruka class deities, are all in the brain. I said 8, it's 10, it's 12. These are all in the brain. And they in the center and in the 4 quadrants in the brain. So when we can release the ignorance, the holding of the brain, then the light of the heart is released, is being able to be seen and recognized. So I'm going to stop the screen share for a couple minutes. Okay. So what do you think of this? I know this has got to be shocking. What do you think of this?
I don't think it is shocking. What the impression that I'm getting is by just having you by yourself talk us through this and kind of stack these various deities, not physically one on top of another, but sequentially. Common themes emerge. And so it makes it a little easier to digest and integrate. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you.
Lance, your last statement was something about the brain and being released, and then the heart, the life from the heart being released. Can you actually say that again? I didn't quite catch it.
Well, if you remember that the wrathful deities are in the brain. The peaceful deities are in the heart center. And the hero awareness holders are in the throat. And remember the image of Vajrasattva that has the big circle, and it has the peaceful deities in the heart center. And it has the wrathful deities in the brain and the hero awareness holders in the throat. So the heart is where we want to be, of course. This is the mind of the Buddha. But if the brain is blocking it up with all its confusions and thoughts, all the emotions are born in the heart, born in the brain, and they block up the heart. They block it up, they cover it up. So what we're trying to do is to remove those blockages in the brain by recognizing what they are, who they are, and so on. So these fierce deities are a mechanism for us to be able to do that, are helping us to recognize that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that image?
I do.
So the thing that we should be doing is concentrating on the peaceful deities. You know, if we concentrate on the wrathful deities, you know, it has a tendency to foster more confusion because of, you know, these images and so on. When we should concentrate on those fierce deities are the times when we're really having difficult problems with the peaceful deities. And then through the guidance of our teacher, we should learn how we are going to fiercely engage with those non-virtues, engage with those difficulties and so on, as if we were these wrathful deities, with the power that these wrathful deities are showing to us, that we engage with that kind of power to release our negativities, to release our emotions, our confusions, and so on. If we were that ardent in being able to do that, we would be much more victorious. If we're lazy about it and say, oh, that's just the way I am, that's my personality, oh, everybody enjoys that, that's no big deal, and you make excuses for it, then, you know, then those demons wind up winning. And so the wrathful deities are like their foes, their enemy are those demons. And that's all within ourselves. It's all within us. It's not out there. It's all within ourselves.
Lance, when you say to focus on the peaceful deities, that makes so much sense, because when you just look at the text and there's so much more description of the peaceful deities, and a lot of the detail you've been sharing with us tonight, which is really helpful, actually isn't in the text. It's in the chart at the end of Gyurme Dorje. And the text is really pretty bare bones, pointing us back to the peaceful deities, as you say. And so I was noticing that this week and reading a commentary, and I wanted to share one line because it was so helpful. It was talking about how at this point the deceased is falling back more into confusion and the ego is reconstellating more firmly, and that's why it needs this attention grabbing. But this commentary says the spontaneous display of enlightenment has not changed, but now we perceive it as fiercer and more threatening. So it's our perception and therefore from our own brain that all of this is coming. And by doing what you're saying of making that link through the color, through the family emblem, back to the peaceful deities, we're coming back to our heart mind in doing that. Or so I think. Does that sound right? Is that what you're saying?
No, absolutely. And so to put it in a slightly different way, but if you remember when we talked about the peaceful deities, they had their tractor beams. They had their light that was pulling us in their direction for enlightenment, for liberation, was pulling us. But maybe, we weren't ready for that. So now we fall further away, like you just said. So now these wrathful deities appear, so to speak, with their weapons. They got their maces, they got their axes, they got these different weapons to be able to shatter our attachments that are pulling us away so that we can get back to the light. So we have to keep the light in our mindset, in our understanding. That's where we want to be. We don't want to be caught just left here, where the idea is not to be left in the brain. The idea is to free ourselves from the brain so that we can stay and abide in the heart center.
Thank you. That really helps.
And to put it in a further context, it is the hero awareness holders at the throat that are telegraphing to us, that are telling us what our attachments are, what our aversions are, what our jealousies are. Through our actions and through our speech, they're revealing to us the things that we have hidden, that we're not recognizing. There are habitual tendencies. So we need to pay attention to that as well. These three are working, there's this, they're all our meditational deities, and they all have different jobs. They all have different activities. So like Thomas was saying, we need to be able to put all this into an understandable context. We're still getting all the elements together. But we go through this over and over and over again. Please don't think that this is the last time you're going to hear these things. Don't think that this is the last time that you're going to study this on your own. If you want to be successful with understanding this, you've got to invest time and effort into this.
Lance, can you say a little bit more about the Garuda? Because the Garuda is there in all of these wrathful deity families. And it's such a powerful image. And I feel like I only have a little bit of understanding of its meaning.
Well, I certainly don't have a great understanding of it myself, but it's basically like this, that the Garuda is at an entranceway. You'll see them at the entranceway in the shrine rooms and so on, but you would also see them in the entranceway into these mandala doors, and so on. And it's this great mythical bird, and it is watching over the entranceway. It's watching over those who approach. And when those beings, those evil ones that are approaching, the bird will swoop down and will eat these animals. And, they're characterized as being like reptiles, like being snakes, which are recognized by many, to be, very, ignorant. So they are eating the snake. And actually in the wheel of the wheel of existence, they're characterized as being aggressors, aggressors. So the Garuda are going down and swooping down on those aggressors before they can get in to do harm inside the mandala. Now, there's two things. Some of those aggressors, some of those snakes, are actually trying to approach the mandala to be able to be liberated. And the Garuda has wisdom to be able to recognize that. And so it helps those beings, and it may eat and digest those beings. And then through its elimination, it may be planting those seeds of that's how that they are reborn into the higher realms by being consumed by the Garuda. So that's a brief, description as I know it.
Lance, are these beings that are outside of ourselves, like they're out there independently, or is this still part of our mind?
The peaceful and wrathful deities?
The ones that you're just talking about, the Garudas, snakes.
It's all within ourselves. It's all within ourselves. It's all within. Now, there are conditions, there are things that are coming into us and so on, but when we allow them in, they become us, so there are factors, there are causes and conditions that may trigger our karma to actualize these things. And this is what we're trying to engage with and to neutralize. But it's all within ourselves. It's not out there, when I was being figurative and talking about that, but it's all within ourselves. Those doors are within ourselves, that the Garuda is there, so the Garuda is us too. We are all these beings, we are all the same. I am you, you are me, it's all the same. You are Jupiter, I am Neptune, we're all the same. To whatever degree you want to look at it. That's the equanimity.
So they're within ourselves, but selves with a capital S, like transpersonal selves, not just within our little ego selves. We certainly have aspects of ourselves that act out aspects of that. But
our temporary
these are,
selves. Well, yeah, our temporary selves, because that's where this drama is all taking place, within our temporary phenomenal nature selves that we have to transcend. When we transcend it, then we become Buddha, what we call Buddha. And Buddha is just a word that we use to be able to connote, this liberation, this awareness.
Lance, do you know anything more about the term Krodeshvari? I Googled it and I didn't have a chance to, I was trying to listen to you, so I didn't look at it very carefully. I'm just wondering anything more about the word, its meaning or its root in any way.
Yeah, it is the Queen of the Expanse. Queen of the Expanse. So if you remember before, I've given the analogy, of the Big Bang, that there's that seminal point, and from behind that seminal point is all this, indescribable, whatever it is. And then here comes this explosion, and this, whatever it is, then spews out. And all that spews out is what we see, is what we call creation, what we call the universe, what we call phenomenal nature, and so on. So from a point of view, all that is behind the seminal point is Buddha nature. And all that is expelled is the expanse of that Buddha nature. So that which is behind that, that which is indescribable, that is ineffable, is the masculine, and that which is spewed forth is the feminine. So therefore you can see that there is this this metaphor for the womb, the female giving birth to all this, and the explosion of the male causing the birth, causing the womb to become pregnant with all this potential and spew forth.
So is Queen of the Expanse, in a sense, synonymous with emptiness?
Emptiness would be a quality, if you will. It would be a conceptual term that we use to try and understand the temporality of that expanse. So the emptiness is just another concept. So, as I said, it would be a quality that we use to understand the nature of phenomenal nature is emptiness, or impermanence is another quality. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend anytime like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make essence it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma.
So far, the 10 deities tonight seem to parallel the peaceful deities and their consorts. Is that true?
Well, that's right. That's what I've said. Yeah. They are emanations. They are the wrathful or the fierce emanations of those peaceful deities that were not able to liberate us, not because they failed, because we failed. We were not prepared to be that free. So we moved further away from them, but then because of their great compassion, they now manifest as these fierce deities to say, hey, I got to do more work to help these beings who are falling further and further away. Anybody else have something? Gary, John, Amanda?
Hey, Lance,
Tom?
wrathful deities seem very, very compassionate. I mean, they're really trying to give you that extra chance, that extra time to realize that, you're really wasting time, wasting everything that's unnecessary, that it's really time to wake up and it's like a slap upside the head, it's like, come on, but they're doing it in a way that it's almost like a tough love, it's like, but something to really wake you up. I mean, if you really look at it at a deeper level, that's very compassionate. It's really, really deep.
You're correct. Yeah. And remember, these are within ourselves. And because they're within ourselves, and because we are interacting with other beings, we may manifest as Amitabha to them. We may be trying to help them to discover the wisdom of discriminating awareness. But if we're doing it in a peaceful means and it's not working, then we may move it up a notch and say, oh, I need to be karma Haruka. I really need to show it to them. You know, where's my shoe? I'm going to throw my shoe at them or something.
It's like a father or a mother, really telling their kids, hey,
Yeah.
straighten
So-
up.
So there may be times when we feel, frustrated, as we're on the path to enlightenment. We consider ourselves to be, pretty evolved and so on, and we confront somebody who is being, obstinate. Maybe it's our children, somebody we really care for, and we just can't walk away from them. And we've tried everything we can logically to help them, but maybe they need something that's a little bit more powerful. So we evoke, that mace or that axe or, that weapon, to help them. But of course, that's just a symbolic, weapon that we're doing. So, and sometimes we need to do it for ourselves. Mostly that's who we need to do it with, is for ourselves.
Thank you.
Is anybody put off by this? Does anybody, does this arouse a fearfulness or some kind of a discomfort in any way? A repugnance in your mind, in your heart? You feel something in your gut says, my God, what have I gotten myself into here?
No, I like what you're doing.
Okay. Thank you.
But I have to say, when I started out with this, I didn't really like the Wrathful Deities much. I just really had an aversion to them that is necessary to work with, because they just seem kind of rude and crude and like over the top. And I don't need that. But of course, at times I sure do.
Yeah. So remember, we're what's being said here is we're slipping away. The people who have died are in the Bardo. They're now in the 12th day, and they're just slipping away. And the deities are trying to hold on to them as much as they can, but they're slipping away.
I think the more symbolic it gets, the more we get comfortable with the symbolic.
Of course, well, maybe so. Yeah, I can understand that. I know the lamas will say, don't spend too much time, thinking about the wrathful deities and so on. Think about the peaceful deities. And I do appreciate that. And they are correct, because it is the peaceful deities is where we want to be. That's the mind of the Buddha that we want to be. But then it's good to know the wrathful aspect or the fierce aspect of the peaceful deities.
Mhm.
Is how strong their compassion is.
Lance, you have changed my impression of wrathful deities and knowing of their fierce compassion as you explain it. I still need more help accepting the skull cap of blood that I haven't quite grasped yet.
Well, what do you think about the skull cap of blood? What does it mean to you?
It's kind of aversion to me. I don't like it.
Funny, it's got a Christian analog. When you drink the wine, it's a cup of blood, technically.
I haven't grasped the significance of that. Can you help me with that?
Well, let me try. What it is representing is transcendence of our body. It's the ultimate transcendence of our body. Somebody cuts off your arm, you can still live. Somebody cuts off your leg, you can still live. Somebody pokes out your eye, you can still live. But somebody takes off the crown of your head, takes off your skull cap, you're pretty much going to be considered to be dead.
Okay.
And the blood is, the life, is the juice of life. It is the water of life. Without it, we cannot live. So to have a skull cup, to have this image of what it is to be a intact, thinking, capable human being, our head, our skull, and so on, and have that full of this life force is to be symbolic of the transcendence of that we don't need that anymore.
Okay, that helps a lot. Thank you.
French and Gabriella, you asked a good question in chat. Would you still like to have an answer to that? Because maybe Lance could help us all with that.
Yeah, I haven't been able to read the chat, so tell me what it is. Your microphone is muted, French. There you are. Oh, it bounced off and there we are. There you are.
Okay. I wonder if in visualizing both now and later in the Bardo, how do the compass directions of the mandala or the compass directions referred to when deities arise from the east or the west in the brain, how does that correspond to the way we visualize our body? In other words, is the front of my body, is my face facing east? Debbie explained that that's the case when one is visualizing oneself as the deity. East is to the front. But when deities arise from one or another direction in the brain, in the Bardo, is the brain compass laid out in that familiar way? Even though we don't have a physical body, we still have a mental body. Do we think of our face direction, so to speak, of our brain, the forefront of our brain? Would that correspond to a deity arising in the east?
I don't think it's that literal.
Okay.
I think that, what all this is a means to be able to organize our conversation, to be able to think about it in relative terms that we can understand ourselves and that we can have conversation between other people to be able to understand. So we're using the signposts that are familiar to us. The sun always comes up from the east, no matter where you are. It always sets in the west, no matter where you are. And depending on which hemisphere you are, but, in this case, we're in the northern hemisphere, the sun is shining mostly in the from the southern direction. And the northern direction is that cold, windy direction and so on. So using that as a guide, to understand that fresh things and new things are coming up out of the east, and that they're maturing. We're enjoying them during the southern time, and then the west they're setting, and during the north is the time when we have to rely on our own wherewithal to be able to maintain, because we don't have that solar energy to keep us going. So it is just a means to be able to illustrate, to symbolize, the way the movement of change, of our actions and so on that we do in everyday life. I think it's really just that simple. It's definitely not literal. When we die, and I've said this before, when we die, it doesn't matter whether you're speaking English now, or you're speaking Tibetan, or you're speaking Hindu, or you're speaking any other language that you can imagine. It doesn't matter. What matters is the language of love. You know, the essence of what the Dharma is trying to show us, the language of bodhicitta. That's what we're really trying to develop here. So all these references that we have, all these intellectual references, are all just temporary parts of our brain that are just part of these appearances that we use to try and organize our thoughts and so on. But when we die, all that just goes away. All that we've got left is our heart. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yes, perfect.
Yeah, and it should be practical. One of the things that I've learned about Buddhism with my years of doing this is Buddhism is very practical. You know, it doesn't require a stretch of the imagination. It doesn't require a mysticism to succeed. You know, it's very practical. And when it gets too much of, well, you know, well, I don't know how to explain it, but it should make sense.
You have explained it, and it does make sense. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good question.
I've always thought it as having just layers and layers and layers of symbols and possible meaning, but they're really there like aids to keep me from being distracted. And if I need to go another level, it's there in all its richness to keep me from flying off in attachment or aversion. So like you're saying, it's there for a purpose, not because of what the details are, but to help us and support us.
Yeah, and most all of this comes from the Buddha Dharma. You know, and this was the genius of Shakyamuni Buddha. I mean, when you think of genius, who do you think of? Think of Albert Einstein. You think of Steve Jobs, maybe. Think of Henry Ford, maybe. You know, but there are spiritual geniuses too, you know. There's Gandhi, there's Sri Aurobindo, there's Krishna, you know, there's so many. And the Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, to be able to articulate this, to create this system. You know, and here it's 2,600 years, it's survived all those changes of 2,600 years, but it's still being taught at the essence level. And that's what we try and maintain and teach from the essence level, and not get into too many footprints, too many embellishments. And when they are embellishments, say, well, this is how I see it. But this is how the Buddha saw it. This is what the Buddha taught. So this teaching, you know, the Bardo Thodol, you know, the Buddha taught Vajrayana. And the Vajrayana was part of what, you know, is what the Mahasiddhas, the great accomplished ones who were in India, you know, 1,200 years or so. No, let me think. It was 600 and 600, 1,400 years or so, the time of Padmasambhava after the Buddha. And they were practicing, and they were following the Mahayana, practicing the Vajrayana and so on. And then Padmasambhava took it to India, took it to Tibet. And among many other books and so on, he created this book, the Bardo Thodol. And that's why he's considered to be the second Buddha. You know, the Buddha, you know, taught the basic teachings, but from that, there's great masters that came out of that. So it's a living practice. You know, that's one of the things that I love about it personally, you know, the future Buddha. You know, that was one of the things that really validated my getting involved with Buddhism was the idea of a future Buddha. That we weren't locked into the idea that there's this guy that lived 2,600 years ago, and that was the only time that there was any truth. And that, but it evolves. It evolves with the same essence. It becomes contemporary, and maybe the way it's experienced and so on, it's changing. Things change through practicality. So the future Buddha is Maitreya, the Buddha Maitreya, who is said to come at a time when Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings have completely been lost. So it's been said that, it's 4,000 years, there's all different kinds of stories about when that is, and
That's funny. In some of the sutras, if you read it, there's 1,000 Buddhas that were supposed to come. And Sakyamuni was number 4. So we still have 996 more to go.
well, look over the head of where Curtis is right now. There's 1,000 Buddhas there, and they are symbolic of those 1,000 Buddhas.
Exactly.
The Buddha said that during the time that my Dharma is being taught and practiced, there will be 1,000 Buddhas. Now, the 1,000 Buddhas can be 10,000 Buddhas. It could be 100,000 Buddhas. It could be 1,000,000. It could be some factor of 1,000 or 10 or something like that. And the Tao Te Ching, he talks about the 10,000 things. Over and over again, he talks about the 10,000 things. So it's just it's another construct to help us to describe something of its multiplicity.
So who were these first 3 Buddhas?
I don't remember the first 2, but the second one was Padmakari. Excuse me. Does anybody remember? I can't think of it right this second. Padma. You can probably look it up. And you got to go back into Hindu philosophy and into early Buddhism. I'm sorry, I can't think of it right now. But they were teachers who taught of the circumstances. Their Dharma was talking about the circumstances. Buddha Shakyamuni said, here are the circumstances. These are the circumstances that the Buddhas taught before I came. But now what I teach is the cessation of those circumstances. That was his gift. And that's the doctrine of the interdependent origination. The nature of all phenomena is impermanent. Stuff is a certain, how's it go?
All phenomenon arises from causes.
Those causes are taught by the Tathagata. Their cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shamaniye Soha. Yes, thank you.
And in the aspiration of Sukhavati, we're always reciting that after Amitabha passes beyond, that Avalokiteshvara becomes a Buddha, and we're devoted to Avalokiteshvara. And then Vajrapani, eons and eons later, becomes a Buddha, and we're devoted to Vajrapani. So there are 2 more out of 1,000.
But it's all within us. It's all within. We are Amitabha. We are Avalokiteshvara Shenreze. We are Manjushri. We are Maitreya. All this is within us. The future Buddha is within each one of us. Okay. So I think for here tonight, we'll leave it here. It's time anyway. And next week is going to get even more interesting. So thank you for joining us tonight. And if you have any questions, write them down. You can email, call me, whatever, or I'm more than glad to talk about them, but don't let questions fester. Don't let doubts fester. Let them, bring them out. Let's put some light on them and see what they are. We may not have the best answer, but we'll try to begin to answer it and help.
Lance, I have one more question. I could probably answer myself, but you may be able to give it a quick answer. When they unfolded the the 5 pairs tonight, did it follow the same order as the 5 pairs of the peaceful deities?
Yes. Okay. So if in your book, all this comes from, I shouldn't say all this, but a lot of this comes from the book, the Gourmet Dorje book and other books, so if you have books, don't hesitate to be studying, reading, and investigating on your own. Okay. So Debbie, will you put up the Amitabha prayer, please? And if you don't mind, let me read this. So you can read along with me. The brief prayer to be reborn in the blissful pure land of Dewa Chen. Dewa Chen is the Tibetan name for Sukhavati. Sukhavati is the Sanskrit name of the pure land of Buddha Amitabha. And Buddha Amitabha is the Buddha, is the wisdom of discriminating awareness. The wisdom of discriminating awareness. Buddha Amitabha is the most accessible of all the meditation Buddhas to us human beings. So this is why we use this prayer as a guide to into the Buddha fields. So we recite this prayer. Ema Ho. In the center is the marvelous Buddha Amitabha of boundless light. On the right side is Avalokiteshvara, the Lord of great compassion. And on the left is Vajrapani, the Lord of powerful means. All are surrounded by limitless Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Immeasurable peace and happiness is the blissful pure land of Dewa Chen. When I and all beings pass from samsara, may we be born in Dewa Chen without taking samsaric rebirth. May I have the blessing of meeting Amitabha face to face. By the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, may I attain this aspiration without hindrance. Teata Pensadriva Avobodhanaya Soha. This is it. The Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas of the 5 families and the 3 times who have destroyed defilement lead to the equipoise of the enlightened mind. So Buddha Amitabha is boundless light, great compassion. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind. Where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. By this virtue, may I achieve all knowingness, by defeating all enemies, confusion. May all who travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you all very much. Om Hum. Om Hum. Om Hum. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightened ones. Thanks. See you all next week.
Thank you for class.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lance, and
Thank-
everyone. Have a
Yeah.
lovely
Thank you.
holiday weekend.
Yeah, have a
Good
good
night.
weekend.
Thank
Be
you.
safe.
Thank you, Lance.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Les.
All right, you're welcome. All right.
Lance.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Good
Thomas.
evening, Lance. Thank you.
Thank you. 1,000 Buddhas.
1,002 gold ones, 4 replacements, and 2 hidden behind the 1,000 orange and resin.
And don't
Used to
forget
be
to
on-
count, and don't forget to count yourself in there.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Cheery bye-bye.
Good night.